Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Matt Hester, and in this exercise, we're going to take a look at Solution 8 on how to actually use the Active Directory commandlets to populate a test environment so you can work with Active Directory fairly easily and create objects and things like that. Now, for this exercise, I'm just going to do a couple simple things on how we can get started with this, and as I go through it, you'll see the different areas. Now, one thing, depending on how you're managing your Active Directory, after you create this script to populate your test environment, you obviously want to run it from within inside of an Active Directory command module that we have. If you are just in a normal PowerShell session and still want to run it, make sure you always run this command here to actually import your module, your Active Directory module to get a hold of those commandlets, which I'm going to do here. It'll take just a second to get those in. And then the rest is just a matter of going through and creating the objects to actually populate my Active Directory environment. As you can see in the background as we're running here, we're going to create an OU, we're going to create a few users, and then we're going to talk about some of the other options you have for setting passwords, enabling accounts, and so on. So the first thing I'm going to do, obviously before you can create users into an OU, I'm going to go ahead and create that OU called test, and that actual user account is created there. And the great thing about this is that after I create that environment, I can then go back in and I can take a look and actually create the users. Now, if you look at the user commands here, I haven't done a whole lot here. Basically created a whole bunch of users for Sarah and Kevin and Caitlin, Mitchell, Nicole, Deb, and you can see the rest that are actually in the list. And basically just giving them accounts. Now, when you create objects with this AD user, by default, these accounts are disabled accounts and we'll have to enable them. Now, depending on your environment, as you're working with these accounts, not only are you going to have to enable them, but you may also have to set passwords for them. And those passwords are going to have to meet whatever your domain policy for password strengths are. So I'm going to show you just a quick and dirty example of how to do that. As I'm doing that, I also want to bring up just my Active Directory users and computers window. And I want to show you that OU that we just created to show you that it's populated in the real environment. I could do that also in PowerShell, but I want to kind of show you as I move through the environment and working with these particular objects and users how this all works. So I'm just going to go ahead and expand my domain, and I just want to show you the test objects and the users that I've created. Notice that they all are currently disabled. Now, if I scroll down here, one of the first things I can do is I can actually set account passwords. And I could have done this after each and every account. I could have simply set a password, pipe those lines in, or put them in very much after I create each account. Obviously, you can only set for password for identities that are already created. I'm going to go ahead and just run this password for Sarah's account. And what this do, it'll set its password. Now, even though we see it as plain text inside of my actual command here, it will get encrypted as it gets stored into that. And then after I set that password, I then can come in and I'll enable Sarah's account. Now, I do want to show you what happens when you try to enable an account that is not password compliant. So I'm going to try to enable Kevin Smith here, and it should come up with an error. Notice it does not meet length or complexity. So the error message will actually show you what happens or how to actually fix it or the problems that we have. So for us, I'm just going to replace Kevin here with Sarah. And I'm going to highlight that option here and simply run that same command. And now it'll enable the account. And if I look back here and just do a quick refresh, in this particular screen, notice now Sarah's account's enabled because it meets password requirements and so on. So depending on what you've done, there's a few other ways to work with the account password parameter and setting objects and parameters. Inside of here, you can prompt the user for each password. You can pipe in definitely the same password for everybody if you want, or you can even bring in a spreadsheet and do it all there as well. Some very quick and dirty ways to do this. Now, the second part of this exercise was to work with one of the new features in Windows Server 2008 R2, and that's the recycle bin. Now, before I can go any further, I'm going to enable that recycle bin. This is the command that you would use to enable it for your entire domain. And depending on your domain, once again, if you have an R2 box and you're bringing it into the system and you've upgraded from a prior environment, you may have to modify your schema inside of your domain and force for this to work properly. I've already done all that, so I'm going to go ahead and enable my recycle bin. Should take just a second. It's going to ask me, do I want to enable it? One special note as a reminder, once you do enable it, you cannot disable it. This is a one-way street as we go with this. And then just to have a little bit of fun, I'm going to delete all those test users that I just created. Notice this simple little command here, get AD user. I'm going to look for everything inside the OU test, and I'm just going to remove the specific AD users that are inside there. And if I run the selection, once again, it's going to give me a confirmation prompt. I'm going to say yes to all here inside of my IISE. And after a second here, it should actually delete and remove all of my Active Directory users inside that test OU. And just to verify it quickly, notice nobody's there. But remember, what does the recycle bin do? These objects just went into a temporary holding pattern, and I can bring them back. And here's a nifty little command that when you want to work with Active Directory users and bring back a bunch of objects at a time, essentially you do need the GUI ID, but because of the pipe symbols, I can do a lot of great work with this. So notice it says get 80 object. I'm going to search inside deleted objects, which is my container where the recycle bin is. I'm going to filter, and notice the parameter. I'm just going to say last known parent equals my OU test. I'm going to say show me just delete objects and then restore those objects for me to work with. So I'm going to highlight this command. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And after here in just a second, hopefully, it will come back and restore all those Active Directory user objects from my test environment. So I'm going to highlight this environment, do a quick refresh, and you notice that all my user accounts are back. The power of the recycle bin. Hope you enjoyed this quick screencast for solution to exercise 8. Thank you and have a great day.